All right, Auburn Live is the website on 3 Sports. @_Jay Hokanson on Twitter is where you find Justin Hokanson, and you also find him on the Pepsi hotline right now. Hoke, what is up, man? How are you?
Not much, just staying busy.
Yeah, I bet you are. Got recruiting coming down the stretch. Auburn looking for an offensive coordinator, all those things. Let's start with the offensive coordinator. You reported at the end of last week 3 finalists. Have there been any names that have jumped into this thing? Is that still where Brian Harsin has landed?
Yeah, I'm still sticking with, those 3 names are still in the picture, no question. I would still consider somebody like Jeff Grimes, a candidate that makes sense. I wouldn't count him out. I still like Frank Ponce in the mix. Del McGee is still in the mix. I feel like that's unlikely, but just as a recruiter and how to make that work. Jeff Grimes would be, obviously they'd have to figure out how to make that work because somebody's got to coach quarterbacks. So there's complexities to that hire. It's why Zach Hill makes a lot of sense and is who we still believe is the candidate they're trying to hire. There's still names out there. Look, they're still doing their due diligence and even interviewing people today. I heard a name. I just haven't completely confirmed it yet, but they're still talking to people behind the scenes, in case, things fall through. I think with Zach Hill is sort of where they're at the moment.
How much of this is just Brian Harsin wanting to be comfortable? You rush to get that first staff together because it's such a quick turnaround for signing day and recruiting, and you don't know who you need for everything at a new job in a new region of the country. How much of this move you think is for comfort of Brian Harsin? Will he go back to somebody he knows? You think that's more likely?
Yeah, I think that's what the appeal is to Zach Hill, who was his OC at Boise for 4 years and then went to Arizona State. I think that's, I think Harsin tried to get him to come in the first place. And at the time, Zach Hill stayed at Arizona State. And so, yeah, I think that plays a big part in it. If you're Brian Harsin, you're trying to build a program, you're in the SEC, you're learning the ropes as well. I think getting somebody, making sure you have a staff together, especially when you're trying to build the culture that's on par with you in terms of the standards and the things you expect, not just your offense to run, but what you expect from whether it's the quarterbacks or the receivers or whatever. You saw Eric Kiesau, right? Gets brought over and then immediately gets promoted. He was at Boise as well. So I think that's important. We heard rumblings going way back with Mike Bobo and Brian Harsin that the fit wasn't necessarily there really early, like September. And then obviously the way the offense went, they made a change, fit or not. The offense didn't do well, obviously, that last month. So I think fit's huge for Brian Harsin right now. He needs guys around him that buy into what he wants to do and support him.
AuburnLive.com @_Jay Hokanson is where you find Justin Hokanson, part of On 3 Sports. He's with us on the Pepsi hotline. Whoever that new offensive coordinator is, what is the quarterback landscape for Auburn as it pertains to Bo Nix, Hoke, the latest you're hearing there, and potentially, if he's not back, a transfer portal guy or what's on the roster? Just kind of give me a lay of the land of where quarterback is right now for Auburn.
Yeah, so Bo Nix, who you guys know well, is still up in the air. That's what I'm reporting anyway. I think that there was some stuff late last week that people tried to say that he had told the coaches he was coming back. I don't necessarily believe that's happened. So I think he's still very much weighing his options. Auburn doesn't have an OC. That's going to be important. And then he's just got to figure out, is it Auburn or is it another school that is the best fit for him? The 3 years under Bo have been tough. A lot of criticism, a lot of heat, some praise, but he's probably been criticized as much as any quarterback I've ever seen at Auburn. And maybe that's hype, whatever it is. And so they're just weighing whether or not Auburn is the best fit for him next year, and all of those things. So that's up in the air. Obviously, TJ Finley, I would expect to come back. You got freshman Demetrius Davis, who, from everything I understand, likes Auburn, likes the place. So I don't see D Davis going anywhere. At least he'll go through the spring. I guess things could change there. As far as the portal, yeah, possibly. If Bo decides to leave, I would have to think the portal is a high possibility of getting a quarterback there. You've got Holden Garner coming in, who's a really well thought of freshman quarterback. But in terms of competition now, you might want to go get a portal guy that will push Finley and push Davis and create like an actual 3-person battle there. That would probably be a smart move. I mean, I think that's a big reason they went and got Finley in the first place, was to push Bo Nix, and it might have worked. Bo had a pretty decent year, all things considered.
I mean, right now, signing day next week, Hoke, and you're looking at a class that's in the 30s with 13 commitments officially, whatever that number is, whether it's 12 or 14, however you look at that. How much can you make up in a week? I mean, are you hearing rumblings that there's a big push over the next 7 or 8 days to Auburn, or is this going to end up being, hey, we've got to go hit the portal?
There will be a push. How much of one, we'll wait and see. I do think there's a little bit of strategy going on where I think there's some guys that potentially could already be committed publicly that aren't. And I think that at this point, I think there's a little bit of strategy of, hey, let's see if we can't have a big signing day.
Okay, explain to people why that would be a popular thing to do, because you cover recruiting. Why does that work to a program's advantage?
Well, I think for Auburn, Harsin, they need to make an impact. They need recruits, and they need people out there to know that they're succeeding and that they're doing well. And so if you think about early signing day, think about watching ESPN or listening to a program like yours, and watching these announcements, and think about if they were able to land 7 guys on that day. Every 30 minutes, you'd be Auburn landed another one, Auburn landed another one. So they could build up some momentum that day if, just in terms of national exposure, if they can get these guys to wait versus, I mean, they could commit 2 weeks ago, but it'd be a day of news and it'd be done. Well, if you could get a few to hold on until early signing period, and then of course you've got these others that you're recruiting that they could lose out on. That's why I say I think there will be a push. It's just how big of a push. I think they're going to land guys on early signing day. I think that they will rise in the rankings, but to what degree, we're not quite sure. It could be a huge day. It could be a decent day. It could be somewhere in between. I mean, there's guys. I mean, you saw I don't know if you guys saw the picture, but I mean, Brian Harsin and Mason, they're all on a plane to Louisiana today to go visit Trey Citizen, who's one of the best running backs in the country. I mean, so there's some big ones out there that they're in play with, but it's recruiting and you never know. But there is a little bit of strategy in terms of maybe getting some announcements on that early signing day to create a narrative that day so that people nationally have to talk about them.
Justin Hokanson is on the Pepsi hotline for a few more moments. It has become the thing to do now, Hoke, even on successful programs that have done well, to make your coaching changes after that first signing day, right? You get the guys in, then you make the assistant changes. And that's not just programs that have gone 6-6. Obviously, Brian Harsin's already made one change with Mike Bobo, the in-season change at receivers. Do you feel like there will be any more coaching changes, any more staff changes after this initial signing day?
I think it's possible. I would say the most likely is Will Friend, who is very tight with Mike Bobo, offensive line coach, who you have to think if they hire an OC will probably would want an O-line coach that knows his schemes. I would think that's likely, but don't know for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, then people kind of go to Derek Mason. I feel like Derek Mason's job is safe for now. I mean, look, what's funny about the criticism about Mason, the defense actually improved by 2 points per game from last year's Kevin Steele defense. And yards per play was down like half a yard. So, I mean, he didn't do that bad. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl was a phenomenal game plan and effort. So that might have gone a long way too. So, and I'm not sure Brian Harsin wants to replace 2 coordinators after his first year. That's just not ideal. And Mason's a good recruiter. So I would lean Will Friend. Makes a lot of sense to potentially there be a change there. We'll see about the OC, if there's a quarterback coach, or like kind of if there's any changes there. But I think the staff, Zach Etheridge, Cadillac, I think most of those guys are solid. I think you'll see more potentially hires on the recruiting side. I think one of the things that this staff has seen is that they need to build up the recruiting infrastructure in terms of on field, off, whatever it is. They need to hire more recruiters, staffers. Especially with the transfer portal becoming a thing, that needs to be upped. And so I think you'll see that from Harsin and this staff is to build up the recruiting infrastructure. And that means bringing in more people, hiring more guys, because they know That's a very, very different world. I think they've got a year under their belts of knowing, okay, we kind of see what this is about. So I think that will happen. I think Will Friend, watch out for him. And then Mason, I feel like his job is safe, but I mean, I guess you never know.
I'll be looking at On3 Sports if Trevante commits for the headline that says model citizen. Trevante Citizen picks Auburn, but if you don't want to use that, I understand.
Could you not come up with a Citizen Kane, a playoff Citizen
I was
Kane? Is that
looking
what
to
you're
see
going for?
if there was a Kane recruit on the horizon, it would be
yes.
Citizen Kane, but that seemed old for Hokanson. He did not look like he majored in old movies back in the day.
Write it down. Write it down.
You're pulling a Schefter on me right now. It looks like you're looking at your phone. Like, do you have breaking news you want to tell us about here?
No,
okay.
I was acting like I was writing your idea down, but I wasn't really.
Okay, well, we've known each other a long time. I appreciate that. Remember when you were just an intern and I had a promising career? Now it's flipped around totally.
Completely flipped around, yes.
Crazy. Basketball. Obviously, Alabama, Auburn, both really good. Alabama got the big win over Gonzaga. Auburn this week working on exams, and then boom, here's Nebraska and Atlanta this weekend. Where are you on this team right now? And I mean, their only loss, right, to UConn in that great classic game played down in the tournament. And then Nebraska and what's left before we get to conference play on this schedule.
Well, and by the way, before we go to basketball, you made a joke about Schefter, and I did just get a text. It looks like they may move on from Zach Hill. Is what we're hearing and what we put up.
Zach Hill is the guy, the offensive coordinator candidate that was with Harsin at Boise State's been at Arizona State. So it looks like he may be out of the mix now.
Looks like they may move on from him. There was some issues there with Arizona State's being looked at by the NCAA. So there were some compliance things, making sure that if he comes over, he's good and that there's going to be no lingering issues. But we heard that Arizona State was kind of dragging their feet, and now here we are on Tuesday. They wanted to get this done yesterday. And so I think it sounds like they may move on from him. That's where we're reporting at auburnlive.com. So we'll try to get some more details and post them on our board. But if they move on from him, now you look at Frank Ponce, you look at maybe Jeff Grimes, you look at a guy that I think interviewed with Harsin today, which is Austin Davis, who's the quarterback's coach for the Seahawks.
That's right.
From Southern Miss, played quarterback at Southern Miss. He's one as well. That young NFL guy. So watch out for him. So yeah, looks like they may move on from Zach Hill.
Okay, we need two phones now. We need something in your right hand phone to break now on the other side. That would be great.
Yes.
That is fantastic information. Thanks for sharing that with us first, right there, Hope. Thank you.
No problem. Basketball. Yeah, Nebraska. A good game Saturday. Nebraska's. They're probably maybe the fourth or fifth best team Auburn's played this year. They're probably not quite as good as UCF, but a good week for Auburn. I mean, Central Florida is a good, talented team.
Yep.
Bruce was worried about that game coming back from the Bahamas. He was not super thrilled having to play that athletic a team first game out from coming back from the Bahamas, but they handled it well. And then Yale obviously is picked really high in the Ivy League, but Yale, I mean, that from an athletic standpoint, that was just a complete mismatch. And Auburn had 14 blocks. And ran away with that game. So good week for Auburn, and they're playing well. The big thing with this team is they're talented, but this team's just got to develop a personality, develop a toughness. Those guards have got to, Wendell Green and Zep Jasper have got to continue to mesh. And as they do, Auburn will go. Jabari's fantastic. We see what he's about. Walker Kessler is a presence at the rim. It's hard to go towards the rim and not worry about him. And then you got Alan Flanagan, who's working to get back. Probably still.
Is that delayed? I mean, we were expecting mid-December. We're almost mid-December now. Is it still on pace to be back mid-December?
Yeah. On pace. I would say that, the St. Louis and Murray State games, those two kind of mid-late December, those are two games I'm watching to see if he returns by those two. But then obviously, even if he does, he hasn't been running, he hasn't been conditioning, he hasn't been shooting within, practice. So it'll take time for him even just to get back into, it'll be, I would say, at least mid-January before you see Alan Flanagan kind of at who he can be, meshed with the team. It'll take a while for that stuff to gel, probably late January before you start to see maybe what this team can be with Flanagan. But good non-conference. I mean, they have a great chance of rolling into that Alabama game, and Alabama does too, at that game being maybe the biggest game in that series history. I mean, those teams could be knocking on the top 10 when that game comes around.
Yeah, Alabama 9 now, Auburn pushing its way up the rankings. I'll ask you before you go, I mean, you're obviously too young to have watched Barkley in person back in the day. Is Jabari the best Auburn player you've seen in your young lifetime?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking when you ask that question, I mean, he's just so unique. He's just so unique. I mean, there have been some good players. I mean, like just recently, like Isaac Okoro was a special player. And you think about, but Jabari, just his height and his ability to pull up and shoot the three at 6'10", his ability to handle the ball like a guard, his ability to go get double doubles. I mean, he can shoot, he can post up. There's just really nothing he can't do. In all reality, I mean, defends pretty well. There's little things he's got to work on, but there's nothing he really can't do. It's pretty amazing to watch him work. There've been some good players, but like Okoro was a fantastic defensive player, but his offensive game was lagging. Jabari's is not, obviously. And so I think then when you see Flanigan come back, I think that'll be interesting is how do they work off each other? And does Jabari potentially get more space if you have to also worry about Flanigan? So yeah, Jabari's fantastic. I mean, they're talking about him pushing for that top 3 pick. And I mean, you guys probably watched the Alabama Gonzaga game. I get the Chet Holmgren stuff. I mean, I understand, but gosh, that guy, I mean, he kind of disappears sometimes. So I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at Jabari and saying, why can't he be 1 or 2?
Yeah, clearly missed the Scott Pullman era there, Hoke. Scott Pullman, the best player in Auburn history, right?
Yeah, he was pretty special. But you think about Chris Porter, Bryce Brown, like great players, but
they've been great ones.
Jabari does everything. There's things those guys didn't do. Jabari does everything.
All right, so go follow Hoke on Twitter. As you see, he's breaking news left and right at times when that phone buzzes right there, telling us Zach Hill. Maybe they've moved on from him for that offensive coordinator spot at _Jay Hokanson on 3 Sports. Good Christmas gift. Give that Auburn fan in your life a subscription to auburnlive.com and on 3 Sports. Great gift there with Hokanson and the gang. Justin, thank you for the time, man. Always fun talking with you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.